The writer's strike has been settled. The WGA has voted on their new contract. However, SAG-AFTRA remains on strike after it appears like studios are not coming to the table with a counter offer. These are the actors who are on these streaming services, who do the acting and read the words that those writers write. After a meeting this week and 5 days of negotiations, bargaining has been suspended between the two, the AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA. This is according to Axios. Negotiations between the AMPTP and SAG have been suspended after SAG presented its most recent proposal on October 11th. After meaningful conversations, it's clear the gap between the AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA is too great, and conversations are no longer moving us in a productive direction. That was from SAG, and we'll have more from them. The overall vibe is that the studios haven't learned. It seems like they're doing the same kind of tactics that they were trying with the writers early on, in terms of what you're asking for is ridiculous, and specifically around a portion of streaming revenue. So here's what SAG said to its members. They said, it's with profound disappointment we report the industry CEOs have walked away from the bargaining table, refusing to counter our latest offer. We've negotiated with them in good faith, despite the fact that last week they presented an offer that was shockingly worth less than they proposed before the strike began. These companies refuse to protect performers from being replaced by AI. They refuse to increase your wages to keep up with inflation, and they refuse to share a tiny portion of the immense revenue your work generates for them. We have made big, meaningful counters on our end, including completely transforming our revenue share proposal, which would cost the companies less than 57 cents per subscriber each year. They have rejected our proposals and refused to counter. I mean, I love the way they put that. 57 cents per subscriber, because it sort of cuts out the middleman between, like us who consume media and like consume all of the movies and TV shows. And, as we know, I'm paying 9, 10, 12. I don't really know because I'm just logged on to other people's accounts. But, that's a fraction of what it would be to adequately compensate the actors. Instead, they use bullying tactics. Just tonight, they intentionally misrepresented the press to the press the cost of the above proposal, overstating it by 60%. They've done the same with AI, claiming to protect performer consent, but continuing to demand consent on the first day of employment for use of the performer's digital replica for an entire cinematic universe or any franchise project. That's huge, Brett. Like that's a really big one there, which is basically like, the day you start work is the day we can use your face or any replica of it in perpetuity for anything. We'll put it on lunch boxes, we'll put it on cereal boxes, we'll put it on a million, you'll be an extra, whatever it is. And you have to consent to that. So it seems like they haven't learned a lot, and they're testing the actors as to whether they're going to strike as hard as the writers.
I think they have learned a lot from that last thing. And so here's the thing. I've been on the phone during actual negotiations as an assistant in a talent agency. And this is, these are negotiations. And so what's hilarious is that it's such a studio move to do the same thing again and pretend that the audience is not going to pick up on that it's the same thing again. But it's also such a studio move to be like, let me not inject any previous learnings, obviously, into the new movie. So it's like the same way that they make, the same movie over and over again. They're doing that with negotiations over and over again.
Yes, this is the sequel.
And why? Because the writers wrote the script for the last one. The actors just have to go down those paths, and the studio executives have to give their notes along the way. This to me, I'm reading as they're going to do the same kind of negotiation tactics and see if they can get more out of the actors than they did out of the writers. And I don't think it's going to work. I think you're going to end up with a comparable contract, and you should end up with a comparable contract, and it should take less time. Who knows if it will?
Yeah. And I mean, the AMPT basically says that it's too much economic burden to give a cut of the streaming platform. But as we know, it would be a fraction. It's not like it's ridiculous. It's so silly. I mean, even to see people like stars from like Abbott Elementary. I'm not remembering the actor's name, but the man who plays like the janitor, I believe, showing like his like 50 cents for the streaming revenue. It's like it does not keep up with what that hit show is clearly making. What is it, CBS or whatnot? I don't know. I forget.
Here's what's disingenuous about it to me is that the studios are pretending that there's no future in streaming.
Right.
Like their entire future is in streaming. If this is an old Hollywood thing, essentially, where the studios own distribution. Now you go to a Regal cinema, you go to an AMC cinema. Back in the day, you went to an RKO cinema, you went to an MGM cinema. They owned not only the studios, but all the actors in the studios had contracts with the studios, not with the project. And the studios owned the theaters. So you would have to go to an MGM theater to watch an MGM movie, the same way you have to log into Paramount Plus to watch a Paramount movie.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's only through labor action in Hollywood that there's been any pushback on that. And so this is just a fight that has been ongoing in this industry since it was started. And the idea that they're pleading poverty, again, let's just throw up this graphic. I love that the SEC asks that companies disclose the amount, like the how much more the ratio of CEO pay to median worker pay. But here you have Tim Cook, Brian Roberts of Comcast, Bob Chapek of Disney, the everywhere, but from Amazon. Andy Jassy's getting kind of the short shrift here. We were discussing this before, but we're talking like 385 to 1, 446 to 1, 230 to 1. The Ted Sarandos of Netflix making that many times their average worker, which, by the way, average compensation, median employee compensation at Netflix, not shabby, $218,000, pretty good, but still be making 230 times that is wild. So yeah, just give up a little bit of your money and you will ensure decades and decades more of prosperity for everyone. Lastly, Brett, there's gonna be an award season this year. Apparently that's rolling out, I believe, isn't it in February usually?
January, February.
I'm curious as to whether this SAG-AFTRA contract will be resolved by then. Under SAG rules, actors, stars, they can't go. They can't go to their premieres. They can't go to their televised ceremonies or events. And some of them are pissed. Some of them who just got their break are like, come on, I really want to go. But also, who's watching the Oscars? I kind of want to see the Oscars with no stars.
Yeah, there's no reason to watch it. The only reason the stars go is for awards, you know what I mean?
It's the goodie bags.
I will say that, like, we were showing you those ratios of like, oh, Andy Jassy's such a low, ratio of his, salary to the median employee. And according to the Economic Policy Institute, in 1965, the ratio was 15 to 1 on average.
Yeah.
Now it is, I want to say 399 times as much as a typical worker in 2021, according to the EPI.
This is wild. But they're job creators.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.